Hey guys, in today's video we're diving into the optimal rune and build setup for Pyke. Starting with runes, Halo Blades is definitely core, as it gives the damage needed to win almost every trade in the early phase of the game, and it feels nice later on. Some could argue that Aftershock is a viable secondary pick into super all-in botlaners, but I don't see it being necessary. I always take Cheap Shot. Sudden Impact is definitely viable though, especially for those who now max E. But Cheap Shot gives more value when maxing Q. Cheap Shot is also better for lane aggression, while Sudden Impact is for a less aggro lane but offers more scaling. Zombie Ward is broken because you will always rush Umbral Glaive, and you literally gain 1.2 bonus AD per Zombie Ward spawned up to 10, after which you gain an additional 10 adaptive force. Last one is a bit tricky, because you can choose any of them, although I personally do not like Ingenious Hunter on Pyke. I go Relentless Hunter in most of my games because it gives me the movement speed to be where I'm needed at the right time, and it reduces time wasted when roaming. If you plan on invading or roaming top mid early in the game, Treasure Hunter can be viable to get your items quicker. Ultimate Hunter can also be viable, but I often buy Axiom Arc, making it less useful, which is why I most of the time opt for Relentless instead. Now, I would never take Ingenious Hunter on Pyke, but if you desperately want shorter cooldowns in your Sweeper and Umbral, you can go for it, but you can also go off a cliff. Now, over to secondaries. You are definitely going to want to go for a Solve on your secondary for survivability. Bone Plating is very good in general, but especially against all-in botlaners, as it reduces incoming damage for 1.5 seconds after taking initial damage. You can swap it out for Second Wind against poke matchups, since you will often get more out of healing from Second Wind than the reduced damage from Bone Plating. But most games, even if they poke a little, they could also all-in you, and then I just keep the Bone Plating. But this is preference. The last runestone I use is Revitalize, as it makes your passive heal faster, which can be really broken since it can counter-effect an Ignite, Burn or Bleed. Some people preferred unflinching for a long period of time. I was not one of those people. And now it has been changed and it's definitely not worth taking. Lastly, I take double adaptive force for extra damage and tenacity. Attack speed is not needed because we have Halo Blades and our abilities are more important. And some of you may be thinking, but since abilities are so important, why don't we take cooldown reduction instead? And this is because the damage gives more value, and we don't really need more CDR. The 9 adaptive force is also more valuable than the 2% movement speed. You don't need the extra movement speed even if it feels really nice, and you're also gonna have Relentless Hunter most of your games anyways. Pyke can't get more health from runes or items, which makes the runes kinda useless. The health gets turned into AD, but the flat HP gives 1 AD less than adaptive force when converted. If you have a lane where you can't go in until level 6, you can actually choose the health scaling over the adaptive force, since it gives more AD from level 8 than the adaptive force. I cannot imagine a scenario where this is the case, but you can try it if you want. And tenacity is just simply really OP. I will go deeper into this later in the video. And if you use any other runes, let me know in the comment section below so I can find your IP address in-game. But also explain why you do this so others might benefit from it. Now over to items. With the new items this season, we've got a lot to pick from. The amount of lethality choices in Season 14 can be overwhelming, and it makes it hard to know what to actually build. But don't you worry, with my help you will be sure to gain LP again. I've already covered how to get Prior consistently in the early game as Pyke, and to do this you need to start Oracle Lens instead of the Ward Trinket. Umbral Glaive is still core when you play support, and that's because of the item passive, which makes you one-shot wards. By having this plus the Sweeper, the enemies shall never see the light of day. I usually finish boots before or after the first item. I switch between Mercs, Ionians, Plated Steel Caps, Swifties and Mobies, depending on the matchup and game state. I can say with full confidence that I go Mercs in over 80% of my games. And for some reason, Mercs on Pyke, which is super OP by the way, is still flying under the radar. Mercs give magic resist, but I am more interested in the tenacity that they give. As you have low max HP and get bursted on very quickly, you never want to be chained down for too long. Mercs are the go-to when the enemies have 2 or more CC, not counting knockups and suppress. They don't even need to have AP, as long as they have a lot of CC, it's going to be worth buying Mercs. Plated steel caps are only worth buying if the opponents are full AD, or if they have no CC and their APs aren't going to bother you, like a tank top or an enchanter support. I rarely ever buy them. Ionians are definitely overrated, and I only buy them when I don't need the tenacity from Mercs and don't need the armor from steel caps. The CDR is nice, but it is not nearly as good as staying alive because of the tenacity or damage reduction from the other boots. Some may try to defend the Ionians by saying that with CDR you have lower cooldowns on your E and W and you can escape like that. But you're not going to get your abilities back fast enough after already engaging anyways. Boots of Swiftness, or as I like to call them Swifties, are good against lanes or games where you get slowed a lot. For instance, versus Ashe, who slows with every auto attack. So there will be some games where you'll have to make a judgment call whether you should go Mercs or Swifties. Lastly, we got the Mobies, which is definitely a bait item. Mobies can be good for roaming, but the second you take damage, you become slower than a Monday. The movement speed feels really good and is so satisfying to play with, but you should never really buy them. After finishing the boots, I'm currently going Edge of Night or Axiomark next, depending on what I need for the game. So I will often have Umbral into boots, then Edge of Night into Axiom. Or Umbral into boots, then Axiom into Edge of Night. When we get a ton of new lethality items to play with, it's only natural that we want to use them, but I feel like it has taken over reasonable thinking at this point. Yes, Voltaic sounds kinda busted on Pyke, considering you recharge it with E, W, and ult, but your main damage and influence for your team does not lie within your autos. And Voltaic does not give you any kind of survivability. So I would go as far as to say that you shouldn't buy Voltaic on Pyke, unless you play for fun and not to win. Edge of Night gives you a nice spell shield, which is good whether you are ahead or behind, because it makes it a lot harder to kill you. Axiomark doesn't give any survivability, but is still more impactful than Voltaic, since it can reduce your ultimate cooldown by a lot, and remember, it scales with lethality. Your ult also has a lot more influence for your team than your auto attacks do. Profane Hydra is really fun on Pyke and made Pyke mid viable again, but since this is a Pyke support guide, it has no place here. The only 100% core of the build is the Umbral Glaive, and the fact that you buy boots early. You shouldn't really change between support items either, but I've already covered this in my latest video. Other than the core, you can swap around any lethality items as you please, since this is just my preference and opinion, but this works wonders for me. I rarely ever buy Serpent's Fang, but if the enemies have a lot of shields, I would consider implementing it into my build, since it negates shields. If you ever buy Collector on Pyke support, you're trolling. It simply makes no sense unless you never manage to hit your ults, but then you should probably find an easier champion instead. Hubris is the assassin's Medjais, and lets you stack AD with kills, but you lose the bonus AD when you die. The takedowns scored before the item is bought do not give any bonus AD. It starts stacking after you buy it, just like a Medjais. You don't lose the stacks when you die, but you lose the bonus AD until you gain another takedown. And the takedown does not count if you have a grey screen. I rarely ever buy this item, but if you like it and you know you'll get a lot of stacks on it, you're welcome to buy it. The opportunity gives movement speed after scoring a takedown and bonus lethality after being out of combat for 8 seconds. This is also an item that can be good in some scenarios, but I rarely buy this either. Ghostblade gives extra movement speed, both with passive and active, which makes it ideal for Pyke. Yet, I personally never buy it. In most of my games, I finish my Umbral, my boots, and then choose between Edge of Night or Axiom next. And then I either swap the 4th item out with Frozen Heart or Maw of Momotheus, or I buy one of them as 5th. It's not too common for me to get to the 6th item in a ranked game, but at that point I am very flexible, and I don't always feel like I need more lethality. Therefore I can buy Redemption, GA, QSS, or even Zonius if I see it fit. Redemption is to help my team even more in the teamfights, for example, if my biggest carry barely dies every fight. GA or Zonias if I get perma-focused, I go Sonya sometimes, especially when I get perma-focused down by champions with burst abilities, such as Rengar, Fizz, or Zed. And QSS can be very necessary against Malzahar, Mordekaiser, or Warwick continuously just using ult on you. So my average build would be Umbral, Mercs, Edge of Night, Axiom, and Frozen Heart. And in most games you will only have 5 items because you have support item, which is very important, as it is the support duty to get vision on the map. Thanks for staying through the entire video. Please like and subscribe if you learned anything. I have a few new videos lined up, one in-depth game review, kind of like a free coaching session to be honest, and one hidden tech that I am permanently abusing in Season 14. And if you have anything specific you want me to make a video about in the future, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And remember that I stream on Twitch and I coach through a Discord server where an hour with me costs you only $15 and you will be guaranteed to climb. Both of which are linked in my bio. See you in the next one.